Hello, good evening and welcome to BBC Look North. The headlines from us this Tuesday night. Humberside police say that hundreds more people are reporting historical sex abuse after celebrity scandals.
I feel like a survivor, but more like a warrior. On the day we got the conviction, I felt like a warrior.
Killed on holiday by a drugged-up gunman linked to ISIS, but the Tunisia inquest finds no neglect by their holiday company. Some of the best ballet dancers in the world will perform in Hull to officially reopen the city's theatre.
I'm really thrilled. I mean, it's so wonderful to be able to bring the Royal Ballet to Hull with principals and soloists from the company and also some of the emerging young talent.
And the rail strikes that have caused chaos in the south spread to the north in a row about driver-only trains.
And this time tomorrow, spring will have sprung, but what does that mean for our weather? Join me later in the programme for the full live forecast.
Good evening. There's been a big rise in the number of people reporting historical child sex offences to Humberside Police. The force says that since the publicity surrounding abuse by Jimmy Savile and other high-profile entertainers, more and more people are coming forward. Reports of child cruelty have also increased. Our correspondent Vicky Johnson has been hearing from victims and finding out how officers are responding to the increased caseload.
Over the past 5 years, investigations have shown that celebrities like Jimmy Savile, Stuart Hall and Rolf Harris all used their fame to abuse children and the vulnerable. Humberside Police now say the publicity surrounding their horrific cases has encouraged hundreds of victims of other abusers to come forward. This woman was attacked physically, emotionally and sexually during her teenage years.
I was really skinny and I didn't have a womanly shape, shall we say, but when I did start to get a little bit of something, that's when some of the sexual side started to play up.
Last December, Alan Beedham, the man who robbed her of her teenage years, was brought to justice and sentenced to 4.5 years.
I wanted people to know he is a bad man, a dangerous man, and when we got the 4.5 years sentence, I was so happy. I wanted my time back that he took from me.
In 2011, Humberside Police were dealing with just over 430 cases of historical sex abuse. By 2016, that figure was 685, an increase of almost 60%. But police insist they are able to cope with this rising workload.
We're prioritising our work, and we'll continue to do that. I don't want anybody to be let down, and I would give them the clear message that if you report to us, we will investigate it.
The Humberside force is also dealing with more child cruelty cases. This woman kept quiet for 30 years before she told police how her stepmother used to regularly beat her and deprive her of food and water. We've changed her voice to protect her identity.
I did at times take water out of the toilet to drink because I was thirsty. So now mentally and emotionally I keep water close by at all times. I need to know where my next meal is going to come from, so I know I'm not going to be hungry.
This woman's stepmother was sentenced last month to 2 years in prison. Both women agree that getting justice has lightened the load of their abuse and finally allowed them to move on with their lives. Vicky Johnson, BBC Look North.
Well, on this one this afternoon, I spoke to Peter Saunders from the National Association of People Abused in Childhood and asked him if the publicity surrounding Jimmy Savile had given victims more confidence to speak out.
I think that the Savile outrage certainly was the turning point for this issue in terms of people speaking out, but also more recently, of course, the footballers that have come forward have also prompted many other survivors to come forward and to contact organisations like my own.
Are there, in your opinion, still more cases out there, but the victims are worried that they won't be taken seriously or maybe, even if they speak out, won't be believed?
I think that has always been the case. There has always been a reluctance on the part of victim survivors to come forward, because if they did try and speak out as children, often they weren't believed or they were told to keep quiet, and that often will silence people for a long time. But I really hope that now that that we've recognised the pandemic of abuse in this country, that people will feel able to come forward and to report what they know.
I mean, in the cases that we've just seen in the report, the two perpetrators, one got 2, one got 4.5 years. Some people will be shocked at that. Are sentences too lenient?
I think you have to take every case on its merit, but by and large, if you think about the consequences of the crime, if you think about the lifetime of devastation and pain that is inflicted on children who then become adults, those kind of sentences would appear to me, in my opinion, to be unduly lenient, yes.
Just very briefly, your response to comments made by one top child protection police officer today that paedophiles who view indecent images but go no further should not be jailed but actually be helped.
I think it's something that we should have a conversation about, but I think that's a very dangerous message that Simon Bailey has put out, that some paedophiles and child abusers may escape, in effect, escape justice. I don't think that's a helpful message in terms of child protection.
Mr. Saunders, very good to talk to you tonight. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Peter Saunders talking to me earlier this afternoon. A man has been jailed for life for the murder of 2 men in Hull. Philip Simmons killed Daniel Hatfield and Matthew Higgins in the city last April. The pair were found wrapped in an old carpet after being beaten, strangled and stabbed. Simmons was told that he would serve at least 36 years for the murders. 3 people from East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire were amongst 30 Britons who died at the hands of a gunman in Tunisia in 2015. Today, a coroner ruled that those killings were unlawful and described the police response as shambolic and, at worst, cowardly. The families of some of the victims believe that neglect by the tour operator and hotel management was partly to blame. But the coroner didn't accept those claims. We'll have a report from the resort of Sousse, where the killings happened, in a moment. But first, Victoria Holland has this.
3 victims of a terrorist who was intent on killing. Claire Windus, Bruce Wilkinson and Carly Lovett were supposed to be enjoying a special holiday in Tunisia. But they died alongside 35 other holidaymakers in the resort of Sousse in 2015, killed by the extremist Seferdine Rezghi. Today, a judge ruled that their deaths were unlawful and the Tunisian police response was cowardly. Claire Windus from Hull should have been celebrating her husband Jim's 65th birthday. He told the inquest he desperately tried to pull her to safety, but the 54-year-old mother of 2 had already died. Bruce Wilkinson from Goole was sunbathing with his wife Rita when he was killed. They'd been married for 51 years. Mrs. Wilkinson told the inquest, "I feel I've lost my best friend." And Carly Lovett died in her fiancé's arms. The 24-year-old from Gainsborough and her boyfriend Liam Moore ran into the hotel to escape the attack, but the gunman moved inside and shot Carly in the chest. Liam told the inquest that their final words were, "I love you." Officers from the Metropolitan Police were sent to Sousse after the attack to bring the bodies back, but also to support the families.
A lot of them had actually seen their loved ones killed in front of them by the terrorists, and nothing could be more more serious and more traumatic really than that, to see your loved one actually killed in a terrorist attack. So that was why this was particularly difficult and particularly challenging for some of the officers dealing with the families.
All of the British victims booked their holiday through the company Thompson, who are owned by the travel firm TUI, and their families are critical that government advice about travel to Tunisia wasn't passed on to them. The judge today said, though, that he couldn't find the company guilty of neglect because it would imply a gross failure. But many of the victims' families will now take civil action against the firm. TUI says it was wholly erroneous to claim that it had been neglectful, but the civil case is now being prepared. It's not yet clear whether the families of Claire Windus, Bruce Wilkinson and Carly Lovett will take further legal action. Victoria Holland, BBC Look North.
Well, the BBC's Nick Garnett is in Sousse in Tunisia. We asked him to give a description of how things have changed since the attack in the summer of 2015.
The Tunisian authorities know that they got it wrong. They didn't think that resorts such as this were going to be a target. They thought the cities would be, but not the holiday resorts, and how wrong they were. So what they've done in the intervening 2 years is work to try and put things right. There are over 1,000 police officers now, armed, that are on the streets of the holiday resorts. They are putting in place things like metal detectors in hotels, under-car security to check what the vehicles have got under them before you're allowed into the hotel areas. To get into the resorts themselves, you have to go past armed police on roundabouts. There are checkpoints everywhere, and they are manned and staffed properly. They are having people stopped all the time and checked to see what their credentials are and where they are going. In everything that they're doing, they're trying to put things right that shouldn't have been wrong in the first place. But the problem is that this resort is now a bit like a Middle East type resort with huge levels of security. And will people, once the restrictions are lifted, and they will be lifted at some stage, will people want to come back to a resort like this?
Nick Garnett in Sousse. Now, one of the best-known ballet companies in the world is coming to Hull as part of the City of Culture celebrations to open the Hull New Theatre. The performance in September will mark the completion of a £16 million refurbishment at the theatre. It's part of a new programme of events revealed this morning for the Hull's City of Culture year. It's also been confirmed today that the 80s pop star Mark Almond will perform at the UK's first National Pride Festival in July. The world-famous artist Grayson Perry will deliver a lecture to the Philip Larkin Society. Hull folk singer Eliza Carthy will be part of Radio 3's 3-day folk festival when it comes to the city in April. Portraits of J.K. Rowling and Sir Ian McKellen will be part of the National Portrait Gallery show at the university. While one of the country's best-loved comedians, Bill Bailey, has curated a cabinet of curiosities which will be on show throughout the summer. But as our arts correspondent Anne-Marie Tasker reports, preparations are already being made for the city to host a world-renowned ballet company.
They've performed on stages across the globe, but this September the Royal Ballet Company are coming to Hull. Among them, some who learned to dance in the city, like Elizabeth Harrod, and Xander Parish, who now dances with Russia's Mariinsky Ballet. And the man curating the show is from Hull too, artistic director of the Royal Ballet, Kevin O'Hare.
I'm really thrilled. I mean, it's so wonderful to be able to bring the Royal Ballet to Hull. Marianela Nunes, one of the great ballerinas of today, is going to be dancing. Edward Watson and Stephen McRae, the wonderful principal dancer of the Royal Ballet, will dance with his wife Elizabeth Harrod, who comes from Hull. So that will be a first, I think.
It's a unique one-off, and that's what makes the occasion so special. And we'll be celebrating the talent that has come out of Hull and the emerging talent as well. It's absolutely fantastic.
And among that emerging talent are pupils from Skelton Hooper School of Dance, where Kevin O'Hare himself learnt ballet. They'll all be taken to the stage alongside the professionals.
That's an experience that I'll never forget. Principals that have got into the company are obviously of a high standard, and to be dancing amongst them is going to be astonishing. Really, I can look up to them and get to know the people and the life and what it's all about.
Other highlights of the next 6 months of City of Culture were presented to national journalists in London this morning, including the Tower of London Poppies visiting in March, Radio 1's big weekend in May, and the images of Sea of Hull unveiled in April.
The City of Culture team says its events have already drawn huge numbers of people to Hull, but they're hoping by bringing the best of the capital's arts up north, they can build on that even further. Anne-Marie Tasker, BBC Look North, London.
Bit too much information to take in all in one go. A big list of great events coming up. And if you want to check on the City of Culture events then that have been announced today, you can get all the details on the website. There is the address, the City of Culture website. Let us know what you think. We're 2 months in now to Hull's City of Culture year. Is it all that you wanted it to be, or better than you expected? Maybe you've got a particular highlight. What do you think of this new programme of events. What do you think it's going to do for the city? What do you think it's done so far? What you're looking forward to? Your thoughts on City of Culture 2 months in. Your thoughts on email, nice and quick, looknorth@bbc.co.uk. If you want to text me, it's 81333. Start the text with the word Look North, or follow me on Twitter, Peter_Levy. Tweet now on the City of Culture, the story so far, and what you hope for the rest of the year, when, of course, the weather will be even better. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your company this Tuesday night. Still ahead on the programme. A funeral for a rugby league legend, Colin Hutton, who gave 60 years of service to Hull Kingston Rovers. And the rail strikes that have caused misery in the south now spread to northern rail services. Keep pictures coming in. Tonight's was taken by Sousse. He took this of the sunshine in Kilby. Thank you very much indeed, Sousse, for that. Another picture tomorrow night, around about the same time. A special night tonight, marking her debut on the 6:30 show. Delighted to welcome Abby Dewhurst for the first time on the programme. Abby, good evening to you. I'm sure they warned you about me, so I'm not going to live up to what they said.
Yeah, no pressure. Thanks for that, Peter.
No pressure at all. I'm a pussycat tonight. I'm not saying a word, so it's all yours.
Bless you, that's so kind. But I'm actually bringing you some pretty nice weather news for tomorrow. The rest of the week, I'm afraid there's not a lot I can do about that. So the headline, let's have a quick look. Sunny spells for tomorrow, but it is going to feel quite cold, I'm afraid. Let's have a quick look at the pressure chart. Our weather over the next few days largely dominated by low pressure, which means we are going to see a few weather fronts feeding in from the Atlantic, bringing some rain, well, hit and miss, I think, over the next few days. But the satellite image from earlier shows, well, variable amounts of clouds. So we did see some really nice, bright, sunny spells, but over the last few hours, we have seen that cloud progress from west to east, and we're ending the day on a pretty cloudy note. A few showers overnight tonight, but I think as we head through to the early hours of tomorrow morning, we'll be looking at a largely dry, clear picture. Temperatures will take a bit of a tumble, and we could see a touch of frost, maybe some ice on untreated surfaces. So take things steady if you're heading out first thing tomorrow morning. So the sunrise tomorrow then at 6:47 and sets again at 5:40, with your next high tide in Cleethorpes at 6:50 tomorrow morning. So it will be a pretty decent start to the day, albeit quite cold, quite frosty, like I say, the risk of some ice, but some really nice sunny spells through the day. A little bit of variable clouds spreading in through the afternoon and 1 or 2 showers. And then I think we'll see something a little bit more persistent through the course of the night tomorrow. So we will see a bit of cloud building from the south of the region. Temperatures, though, not too bad, 7-8 Celsius, around the seasonal average. Tomorrow, of course, the first day, meteorologically speaking, of spring. It's probably going to look like it, might not feel like it, though, maybe a touch on the chilly side. But then as we head through the course of the next few days, it is looking quite unsettled, as I say. Very difficult for me to give you any real detail. So if you are heading out, grab your brolly. You may well get caught in the odd shower. Thursday's looking like a quite windy day, and we could actually see some snow overnight into Thursday as well, Peter.
Absolutely brilliant. There we are. But Keely's worried if she's watching. I bet she's shaking in her designer boots. See you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Now, the main transport union has announced its members will stage a one-day strike on Northern Rail next month over the role of train guards. Northern is the biggest rail network outside London, covering most of the north of England. Major routes in our region include trains from Hull to Doncaster and to Bridlington, and also services from Lincoln to Sheffield. The train operator says it'll run a revised service during the strike. Katie Austin is outside Beverley Railway Station at the moment. Why is this strike happening?
Well, trains that come to Beverley and up the East Coast will be affected after members of RMT Union voted by more than 80% to stage a one-day strike on the 13th of March. It's happening after Arriva Rail North, which runs the Northern franchise, it has a transformation plan in mind, which includes new trains. Now, the RMT says it doesn't want to see drivers operating the doors on those trains. It says that's not safe and guards should carry on doing them. If that sounds familiar, that is because it's the same dispute that's been going on for a long time on Southern Rail. And in fact, Southern, Northern and Mersey Rail will all be striking on the same day on the 13th of March. We asked the union why.
Passengers in Rail North actually have got a guarantee of a second safety critical person on every train. They're going to take that away unless we stop that, and that will lead, if we don't stop it, to a less safe, less secure and a less accessible railway. So I'm hoping passengers will understand that our members are taking industrial action because they want to see a secure, safe and accessible railway.
And how much trouble and disruption will this cause for passengers?
It's hard to tell at this stage. The RMT has 1,200 staff working across the Northern Rail network. A few drivers, mostly guards. We don't know exactly how many will walk out until the day. Now, Northern Rail says its modernisation plans are still in its very early stages, and it's a shame the strike's happening now. And it says passengers will still be able to get trains on the strike day.
We want to provide some assurance to passengers. We're working also very hard to look at our contingency arrangements to keep as many people on the move on the 13th of March. But between now and then we'll work hard to get the RMT back around the table, continue those discussions so we can work together to shape the future of rail in the north.
Both the rail company and the union say they want talks to try and prevent this strike going ahead. Now, this issue has been going on for a long time on Southern Rail and talks haven't worked there. So we've got 2 weeks to see if an agreement can be reached to stop this strike happening.
Casey, thank you very much indeed. Of course, we'll follow the story. The funeral has been held of Hull Kingston Rovers president Colin Hutton. Mr Hutton died earlier in the month at the age of 90. He'd been with Rovers for more than 50 years. He also played for neighbours Hull FC. Our sports reporter Simon Clark joined the mourners at the Rovers ground in the stand, which bears his name.
Arriving at the ground which he helped to create, carried by former stars of his beloved Hull Kingston Rovers, Colin Hutton was remembered today in his adopted city of Hull. For more than half a century, he served this club as coach, director, chairman and president. Before then, he was a player first near to his home for Widnes and then for 6 years at Hull FC.
I'd go so far as to describe Colin as our off-field icon.
Rovers chairman Neil Hudgell led the tributes at today's service.
He got to Wembley in 6 different roles, and you know, to be reminded of those sorts of things, you know, kicking a goal off the touchline to win a championship, it's a mark of the man that, you know, you have to dig and search for those sorts of things. There's such a level of modesty about him.
Mourners, who included some of the stars who'd lit up Craven Park over the years, and dignitaries from the world of rugby league and from the city which made him a freeman, heard how he'd led his country to international success. David Watkinson remembered the day Colin knocked on his door and turned him from an amateur into an international player.
That was the first time I met Colin, which was, you know, quite an experience. If he hadn't have been knocking on the door, you know, who knows what would have happened, but yeah, I owe an awful lot to him.
I lived with the Huttons for 2 years, and I lived with Marjorie and Susan and Colin, of course, and he was just a true friend.
Colin Hutton was remembered today with fondness and with humour. He was remembered for his dignity and for what he did for this rugby league club. I mean, we're at Craven Park, and that is part of his legacy, and he will be sadly missed by everybody connected, not only with Hull Kingston Rovers, but with rugby league as well. Simon Clark, BBC Look North, Craven Park.
Sad day, funeral of Colin Hutton. Now, by the end of March, we should hear the results of who's won Visit England's National Tourism Superstar Award. Among the top 10 finalists in the country is Hull guide Paul Schofield. He spent almost 3 decades doing guided walks around Hull and Beverley for visitors from all over the world. Today, though, he took Simon Spark.
Right, so you're here for the guided walk, then follow me. So we're coming down Trinity House Lane now and stopping outside, I think, the best decoration in the city.
Meet Paul Schofield. He's been a tour guide for Hull and Beverley for 28 years.
And we're going past Bob Carver's as well. It's another Hull institution. Home of the Patty. And the smallest window in England is here.
And now he's a top 10 finalist for a National Tourism Superstar competition.
I can't get used to that phrase. So, I'm quite modest usually, so the attention's quite flattering, I think.
From the latest vote update, he's currently lying in 2nd place behind a Norwich chip shop owner.
It is a public vote, so we need to get the whole in East Yorkshire vote out to make sure Paul gets into pole position come the 31st of March.
So let's get our own taste of how Paul spreads his magic words.
Right, now we're still in Trinity House Lane, but then we're walking through to probably our most famous street because it has such an unusual name, and the street is called Land of Green Ginger. And everybody asks, why is it called Land of Green Ginger? And to be disappointing, nobody knows. It's a real surprise, really. I found out before Christmas I've been nominated, and then I found out after Christmas I've been shortlisted, so to make the final 10 for a national award, you know, it's a real honour.
The competition is being awarded through Visit England in conjunction with the Daily Mirror. Voting is online, with the winner announced during English Tourism Week between the 25th of March and 2nd of April.
All this walking is quite thirsty work. So yeah, we'll finish at the Old White Hart. Many people believe the decision here was taken not to let the King Charles I into the town that led to the start of the English Civil War. So cheers.
Simon Spark, BBC Look North, Hull.
He is a lovely gentleman and so popular, and does some wonderful guided tours, and it's not too late to get a vote in for Paul. We'll let you know how he gets on in the Tourism Awards, and don't forget, if you've got a story like that we should know about, send me an email, give me the details. Now let's have a recap of the main national and regional story this Tuesday night from the BBC. The Tunisia inquest ruled that 30 people, including Claire Windass from Hull, Bruce Wilkinson from Goole and Carly Lovett from Gainsborough, were unlawfully killed. The families of some of the victims say that they will now sue the tour operator TUI for not warning them of the danger of Islamist extremism. Well, Emily Unia has been at the Royal Courts of Justice in London throughout the inquests. Where do the families, Emily, go from here?
Well, we now know that 22 of the families, or rather families of 22 of the victims, are going to sue TUI for compensation. That is the company that owns Thomson Holidays. Now, their solicitor, Kylie Hutchison, said it was crucial that the travel industry learned from what happened in Sousse. Now, TUI has argued during the inquest that it was wholly erroneous, that it was neglectful, and there was insufficient evidence of any gross failure on its part. The coroner this morning said he couldn't rule a finding of neglect because the law of neglect doesn't cover tourists on holiday. He said the simple but tragic truth was that a gunman armed with a firearm and grenades went to the hotel that day intent on killing as many people as he could.
Emily, thank you very much indeed. Emily Unia at the Royal Courts of Justice in London. And of course, we will follow any developments on that story. Talking last night about Serco, the problems 18 months on since they had the contract there for Lincolnshire County Council. Thank you for the emails and texts. Just a couple. Stephen Hull says, why does no one ask the question who gave Serco the contract and why? And who decided to change the way their success is measured? And a school business manager got in touch, says the only reliable system is the school finance staff, and yet schools have the privilege of paying Serco for payroll services. If schools want to opt out, we're being told that schools will have to pay for any outstanding queries to be resolved. Thank you for those on the subject of Serco. We may or may not return to that story. Have a nice evening. See you later on. Bye for now.